la izquierda calenta corta. Para la derecha, buena más ojos, se cierra. Acaba puente, abrirse.
Colin McRae and Didier Auriol were equal on this stage, equal in 4th position. They were 0.7 of a second slower than Marcus Gronholm. There you have it. Well, Peugeot get another win. They all count. Gronholm 1/10 ahead of Loix, Sainz, and all of the others. So day one proper got underway today. 55 kilometers outside HQ. Tommi, Mäkinen and Auriol first on the road from McRae and Sainz, and then the other WRC cars going back to the two Skodas in 13th and 14th position on the road. Searing temperatures as they came to the start of stage 2 it was this morning, the first of the day. And it was Tommi Mäkinen first on the road. He soon found that natural hazards weren't the only hazards to dodge.
A lot of spectators and organized, all the police guys on the middle of the road.
He lost grip at the end of the stage, and that was his time at the end of stage 6. Second on the road was Didier Auriol. He was soon in trouble.
Gauche à fond, avoir plonge. Le fond, avoir plonge, 40 mètres. Gauche à fond, frein sur haut. Gauche à fond, frein sur haut.
He eventually retired on stage 6. He cut a corner too tight and made a real dog's dinner of the suspension. Here you can see him on the edge of the road.
We were just a little bit too close from the edge of a corner inside, and inside of this corner was a milestone. We haven't noticed it during recce. So we hit this stone and we broke the front suspension. Then it was still 5 kilometers to go on a very twisty stage, so no chance to go through. You know, it was not anymore possible to steer the car, so we have to stop there with a big disappointment.
Auriol out of the rally. Colin McRae was out fighting from the start, quicker than Mäkinen on the first stage, but was then slowed by a puncture on the next. Most teams, of course, have got the moose to immediately inflate the punctured tyres, and McRae only lost seconds.
Okay.
He kept in touch with Mäkinen's times, and after stage 6 was only 1.5 seconds behind the Mitsubishi. The Toyota of Carlos Sainz hasn't won a rally since New Zealand, and he's not going to win another one if he does things like that in the Corolla. The Toyota driver was finding it hard to stay on the road, but didn't lose much time on Mäkinen. 5.9 back after stage 6. So there you have it after stage 6, after 3 runners through. We're doing it bit by bit. We're going to do up to stage 6, and then after stage 8, the final stage at the end of the programme. Back with the Subarus. Now we have got the number 6 machine of, it is Juha Kankkunen, the winner in Argentina. He's been testing here. He's happy with the machine. Not holding back at all. 40-year-old Finn. Didn't have any luck on stage 6. Just look at the front tyre flapping away, but he didn't lose too much time.
Just we lost a little bit of time on the last stage. We had a puncture there, but still, long rally we can do something, I think.
Richard Burns was fastest on stage 3, 4, 5 and 6 today, making it 4 fastest times today. Even though he stalled through a water splash, he was in fine form. Thomas Rodström went over a jump and landed on a big stone. He pushed the sump guard up into the sump, and all the oil went AWOL. The power steering went AWOL as well. Rodström then retired out of the rally. On board with the Seat of Liatti, seeing Rodström left at the side of the road.
Yeah, we had a fantastic start with Thomas leading and Colin second, and then into the 4th stage. First of all, he got to the end of the stage okay, but reported that he lost his power steering, and we sort of tried to give him the advice necessary. And then on the next stage, the engine failed as well. His car stopped in the stage.
Next up was Peugeot with Francois Delacour. Collisions with the stones were creating problems. He kept soldiering on, down in 10th.
Francois had the problem of oil leaking on the engine, and he has lost a big part of his oil, and oil pressure was a little bit down. but we asked him to drive quite slowly to bring the car here, and so we can repair it.
There you have it after a few more runners through stage 6, with Burns having the advantage. Freddie Loix was on the road after Delacour, and after a puncture on stage 2, he picked up a bit of time. If he hadn't spun on stage 6, he could possibly have finished ahead of Sainz and McRae. As it was, after stage 6, Loix was over 30 seconds behind Burns and only 6 away from Sainz. 10th on the road, Italian Piero Liatti in the Seat was the victim of the rocks. He had 5 punctures on the first 2 stages.
In sinistra 3 apre, 30.
By the end of stage 6, Liatti was 7th. Rovanperä here before stage 6 got up to 8th, but he went off later in the day at about 120 mile an hour. He's all right, though. Marcus Gronholm, he went through a Ford, not a car, water, and the water got into the engine, and then he had to slip the clutch, and eventually the clutch gave up. Onto the Skoda. This is Armin Schwartz. He was overdoing it slightly, and they don't have mousse in those tyres. At the end of stage 6, he was over 3 minutes behind Richard Burns. His teammate Trina was nearly 6 minutes off the pace at the end of stage 6, 24th spot for him. In Formula 2, Hyundai dominated with Ericsson and former 1995 British champion Alistair McRae, but McRae also did a bit of a Rodstrom and holed the sump the end of the day, and he has retired. Therefore, Ericsson leads F2 comfortably so. He's about 6 minutes and 39 seconds ahead of the next F2 competitor. Those are the results after stage 6. The next 2 stages are coming up. 206 WRC Peugeot. The Frenchman stays in 8th position, 2 minutes and 11 seconds back of the leader. It's a big satisfaction. The car has seen its potential, but we have to continue to work. The Peugeot camp were absolutely ecstatic when they heard the news. 6th was Juha Kankkunen, 23 seconds back of the leader. He's a little bit disappointed because without a puncture on stage 6, he could be leading.
Let's say everything else went quite well, except one stage we had a puncture there and lost 50 seconds to Richard, but otherwise good day.
Freddie Loix is in 5th position, making a good result so far, trying to get rid of his bad luck that's been dogging him, and of course the probable psychological effect still hanging over him from Safari. He's 17 seconds back of the leader. Richard Burns is 4th. He's only 13.6 back of the leader, but he voluntarily took a penalty coming out of final service this evening. That means that he was in 1st position coming out of the last stage, but he's now further down the field. He was in 1st position on the road last year in the Mitsubishi, but he reckons he's going to lose time there this year.
It's a lot, I would say, more unpredictable here, but I think we showed today that the car's quite strong, and we just have to make sure, you know, we keep on top of it tomorrow as well.
Carlos Sainz is 13.5 seconds behind the leader and only 0.1 ahead of Burns. He's very happy indeed to be within 20 seconds of the first car on the road. Sainz in 3rd.
Tomorrow is going to be hard, typical day cleaning up a lot the roads, which the ideal position is 6 or 7 in the row.
Tommi Mäkinen finishes 2nd after day 1, 8.7 seconds back of the leader. He's very happy that there hasn't been any problems similar to, of course, last year when he retired on stage 1 with a freak electrical problem. So then, Colin McRae leads the Acropolis Rally after day 1 in the searing temperatures. Temperatures up to and approaching 50 degrees Celsius inside the cars have been reported. McRae is 1st on the road. Don't know how it's going to be with the marbles. He's got to clear the road for the others behind him, but he's going to be fighting as hard as always.
Yeah, I mean, we were really hoping to be 3rd or 4th. That's the problem. We backed off in the last 2 stages, but Tommy and Carlos backed off even more.
Gravel rash is a mechanic's term for what the stones do to the underside of a car. They make absolute, well, they just trash them, and of course a mechanic's best friend is his lump hammer.
Well, I mean, I've been here on and off since 1981, and I've never seen cars coming in the state that they're in. You know, 2 years ago we had a 1-2 here, and there's so much damage this event, and we've only done one leg. I mean, it's remarkable. You can see the body repairs that are having to do to the sills and everything, and I mean, Colin says he's never seen anything like it.
The 1994 British Championship has seen some rallying, but what does Peugeot make of it? Soon we'll have to prepare specially for this rally, similar to Safari, with a very specific car. It's very hot. You can't compare it to another event. So we're coming with a 206 from Corsica with, well, suspension for gravel just bolted on. We were maybe being a little bit optimistic, but we've been happy today with the fastest stage time. Huge rocks just send judders through the whole of the car, but of course it's the tires that take the worst of it. Sump guards made with a mix of Kevlar, carbon fibre and titanium try and keep the sump free from damage. And multi-absorbent plastic sheeting wrapped around the suspension also tries to do its best.
It's very hard to it, and also from the suspension, for the difference between tarmac and the gravel is that you need more travel on a gravel car to manage the steps and the big rocks and so on this roads you find here.
There is the absorbent plastic sheeting and other guards to the rear. Here we are looking underneath the rear of the M Sport Ford Focus. And here we are underneath the Subaru. There you can see a guard on the rear diff, keeping those killer rocks away. Suspension also takes its second worst hammering of the year after Safari, of course. Is it a greater challenge to an engineer compared with the tarmac rallies? On the gravel there is specifications to be followed, particularly with protection, reliability and traction. And it's also very important to optimize the protection on gravel events like here in Acropolis. Australia are the same. Finland is also similar. Each country has a slightly different gravel spec, and the engineering part really is very interesting indeed.
Qui vont donc de l'Acropole, Nouvelle-Zélande, Australie ou Finlande, des terrains qui sont vraiment différents et spécifiques.
Peugeot in at the deep end after Corsica, very smooth tarmac rally, and now coming into Acropolis. Well, you can hardly expect two different rallies after each other. Freddie Loix, what's he got to say about it?
Now, the technicians have talked about how much protection they have to put on the car. Is it protection against the rocks or protection against you?
It's more protection against the rocks, I think.
So after day one, Colin McRae leads the Acropolis Rally, just ahead of Tommi Mäkinen, Carlos Sainz and Richard Burns. Further down in Group N, Al-Wahabi in another Mitsubishi, similar to Mäkinen, but of course Group N is leading that Group N class just ahead of Rudy Stoll. Freddie Dorr is in 20th position. Toshio Arai and Roger Freeman are down in 21st. F2 led by Kenneth Eriksson. Simon Jean-Joseph is in the 1600cc Puma. He's down in 29th position. He is, of course, the tarmac driver for the Martini Ford team regularly. Nigel Heath down in...
3 different threads, and 2 of those are the most used for the range of temperature here in Acropolis. One is just in case of rain. One thread is called XR. This thread is used in clean surface, clean and rocky surface. And this other thread here is called KC, and this thread is used when you have more loose gravel on the top of the rocky surface. You can make this tire working a little bit better on loose, making some extra cut and some bigger groove, like you see.
Tyre damage is always a major factor on all rallies, particularly those on rough terrain, such as Safari here, where they sometimes just completely explode, if not part company with the car. Remember Tommi Mäkinen's dramas on Safari, but the technology that the tyre manufacturers have brought forward is, of course, mousse.
We use a mousse insert, which is called the Michelin ATS system. which is a mousse which is fitted inside the cover before the tyre is fitted to the rim. And this mousse ring sort of rests against the rim until there's a problem, a puncture or a damaged rim or anything which lets air out of the cover. It fills the space inside the tyre left by the air that's gone out, and the drivers can continue.
The rally continued with Richard Burns deliberately incurring a time penalty last night, so to go from first to fourth on the road.
Well, I mean, I was first on the road last year and it did lose us quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to think about it, but you have to weigh up whether it's worth doing it or whether it's not worth doing it.
Tommi Mäkinen didn't agree with his tactics.
I think it sounds a little bit stupid.
Only time would tell if he'd made the right choice as they go into battle for today's stages. There's the running order, with McRae going first, sweeping it for Mäkinen, who swept it for Sainz, who swept it for Burns. Was fourth, fifth or sixth going to be the best place on the road? A little bit rougher it would be further back. Colin McRae, therefore, first on the stages. And nothing held him back, as always. Winner of this rally last year. He didn't get off to too good a start because he suffered 2 early punctures. Therefore, he knew that his times would be beaten. At the end of stage 12, with still 2 stages to go this afternoon, McRae dropped to 4th position.
30, 3 left, less tightens, and tightens 9.
Wasn't for the lack of trying, though. Tommi Mäkinen and co-driver Risto Mannisenmäki drove straight into trouble. 3 punctures and a damaged radiator slowed them over the early miles. But the car managed to maintain reasonable speed, but the damage did put the team under extreme pressure.
Heti oikein nopea aukeaa. 5. Vasen ja oikein kirraa pitkä nopea plus helppo. 3.
Mäkinen after stage 12 in 3rd position. However, with only 8 seconds to go at the end of one of the 20-minute services, he dashed out of service and just failed to get a time penalty incurred. He was very lucky there. Rugby's Mitsubishi Rally Art working overtime as always. Reigning world champion showing his class. This is one of the rallies that he hasn't won. So, Mäkinen 3rd after stage 12. Another 2 stages to go. We'll catch up with those 2 stages in part 3 of this program. Well, Carlos Sainz was the sole Toyota on the road, of course, after the demise of Oriol yesterday. So he had to get those championship points for Toyota in the manufacturer's table so that they could keep their lead. Hanging it all out as always. It ran reliably, but he, like McRae and Mäkinen, punctured on stage 10. Stones in the road was not the word. Just look at the onboard. So Carlos Sainz just half a second ahead of Tommi Mäkinen. So then, Mäkinen 3rd, Sainz in 2nd. Richard Burns came onto the stages not knowing if his tactics of being run further down the field would work. He soon silenced his rivals by winning stages 9, 10 and 12, making his tally up to 8 in the stage wins after 12 tests.
Feature left plus 30, flat left 30, K right, 8.
He did have some gearbox problems. Again, electronic maladies rearing their little ugly head, similar to those that he suffered in Argentina. Burns in the lead.
We had the same problem we had yesterday morning. We went through a water splash and immediately the car, we had like no drive. So I had to reset the transmission 3 times before it would actually drive. So we lost quite a lot of time in there.
All heart-stopping moments. So then, Burns 9.2 ahead of Sainz, Mäkinen just half a second behind the Spaniard. Belgian Freddie Loix was in his best position all year to have a chance of finishing inside the top 3. The Mitsubishi driver benefiting from the cleared stages. He did have a couple of spins, however, and clouted the rear right suspension big time. That caused the window to fall out, bodywork to be pretty second-hand, and giving those Mitsubishi Rally Art mechanics a little bit more work after Tommi Mäkinen.
Rechts 62 smal. From links naar voor lang. Jump even rechts naar voor.
We went a little bit too sideways, 5 kilometers on the end of the stage, and we hit a tree. Was lying outside in a corner. We hit the tree and damaged the suspension a little bit, the body shell.
Juha Kankkunen started the day in 6th position and was up to 3rd at one point, despite having a couple of problems. But after all those problems, he went well and got a good flow going. He was only marginally slower than Burns on 2 stages. He was pulling himself up and keeping himself in that top 3. However, he was cruelly sidelined after major rock damage to the car on stage 11. His rally was over, and as he comes past the camera, just look at the front left wheel. Flopping and flailing around, suspension terminally damaged.
Yeah, go ahead. The whole suspension arm, this blue color, which is completely broken, and then the drive shaft on the left front.
TCA's broken? Yeah. Okay, that's the TCA.
No, wait there. We'll send someone with a trailer for you.
It's suspension failure. It's actually where all the suspension mounts into the cross member on the front suspension. The cross member's just cracked and broken completely.
Yeah, sure, and we had a good chance to do that for sure, but that's it. I hope Richard can do better.
Yellow flowers give way to yellow cars. Piero Liatti in the Seat was posting good times, only 4 or 5 seconds slower than Burns, but on stage 12, a massive impact cracked the gearbox and Liatti fell back. Started the day outside the top 6, and that left the crew working overtime to patch up the damage. He was now, though, in 6th position. This is Rovanperä from the last stage last night, and he had a biggie. Just watch this. Rovanperä was okay. The Peugeot of Francois Delacour had won that last stage last night, but a failed suspension arm was to start his slow slide away from the leading group. He started day in 8th position, where he was up to 7th after Kankkunen retired.
80, corde. Attention, bref, 57. Gauche 100.
Delacour, the sole Peugeot, after Gronholm retired after an exploding clutch yesterday on day 1. Delacour 7th after stage 12. Armin Schwartz started stage 9 spectacularly. Only 3 kilometers in to one of the rally's longest stages, he rolled the Skoda big time. Just ride with this. Remarkably, he restarted, but an engine failure on stage 10 resulted in him leaving the next service late, and he was now only over 16 minutes back of Burns. Teammate Trinner, he just soldiered on. They are just so keen, and it's top of their agenda to get real stage miles under their belts. In F2, after the demise of Alistair McRae in the Hyundai last night, his teammate Kenneth Eriksson therefore leads the Formula 2 class. So after 12 stages with 2 still to run, Burns leads by 9.2 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. And Tommi Mäkinen in 3rd position. There you have it. Look how close it is. The top 3 covered by less than 10 seconds. Run today. Colin McRae, it all went wrong. He was slow into stage 15, and on the road section into that stage, he was only able to use first and sixth gears, and with another 4 in the middle, it was all going wrong for Colin McRae. He's out of the rally with the gearbox problem, and no points for the winner of the Acropolis Rally last year in the Focus. Ford going home early after Rodstrom retired yesterday.
It's very disappointing. I think it's really disappointing for Colin, because I mean, really, if we could have gone away from here with some points, I think it would have been quite difficult to catch Richard probably tomorrow. But you know, we would have felt very confident about finishing second. And okay, it's these things happen. We just got to get on, get it sorted for New Zealand, and see what happens.
Shame that, because McRae was running in 4th, only 14 seconds back of the leader. Piero Liatti was consistently 5th before the last stage of the day, but 4 kilometers into that last stage on day 2, he went off the road, medium to large accident, we have been informed, and he is out of the rally. Look at the Peugeot on the front suspension of the Peugeot. No upright left with Francois Delacour. He lost an enormous amount of time on the stage because of this problem. He therefore finishes up the day in 5th position. The Soul 206 limping back to service, although he did get there. 6th, by the way, is young Estonian Marko Martin. He's running in the Toyota Corolla for the first time after having run in the Ford Escort earlier rallies this year. He's in 6th. Delacour 5th. 4th is Freddie Loix. The rear right, as you can see, pretty second-hand. He had to go for a few stages without the rear screen, and therefore the car filled full of dust, causing he and co-driver Smeets to suffer breathing problems, although he did very well indeed. Tommi Mäkinen is in 3rd position in his Mitsubishi Lancer, and only a few seconds off the lead of Richard Burns. 35 seconds he is back of Richard Burns after day 2.
Well, it's very long way, but at least they can fix up the car for tomorrow, and at least definitely I'm going to try. I'm going as fast as I can tomorrow. And
will you risk everything to win?
Yeah, I will.
Second position this evening is Carlos Sainz. He's only 17.2 seconds behind the leader, Richard Burns. Sainz hasn't had any problems today, been pretty good, been pretty happy with it, and he is going for the win tomorrow. It's going to be a showdown finish.
Do you really expect to be second at the end of the second day on the Acropolis Rally?
Well, it was a good chance today in the position where we finished yesterday to finish today second, so I'm happy.
Richard Burns did not win the penultimate stage, but he did win the last one. Therefore, his tally is up to 9 stage wins from a total of 16 stages. He is leading the Acropolis Rally by 17 seconds.
Richard, no lead is ever big enough, but do you think 17.2 seconds will do you for the last day?
Well, it has to. I've tried to make it as big as possible today. Unfortunately, I made a mistake, and also we've had a problem with the gearbox, so in all we've probably lost about 30 seconds, but you know, there's nothing we can do about it now. We've got that 17-second lead, and we have to make the most of it tomorrow.
Gunning for his 3rd World Rally Championship win tomorrow, Richard Burns. Keep your fingers crossed back home in the UK. Burns from Sainz from Mäkinen. Both he and co-driver Carlo Casina were okay. McRae retired on the last stage at the end of day 2 after a gearbox failure in the Ford. Sorry way to end the rally. They were easily in the top 3. McRae, winner of this event last year in the Subaru, of course, going no further.
What's happening with it?
They could only limp out And look at the points dribble away.
Unfortunately, what happened, we lost, it started jumping out of gear, and basically it started spitting out of all the gears, and we've ended up just with first. It's obviously taken second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. So, unfortunately, retirement, that was the only option. C'est la vie.
The pair could only watch as the other teams pulled away into the distance. Burns, it seemed, could do no wrong, but there were one or two surprises.
40, easy left, 60, no, stop. Easy left, 60, no, stop.
Okay, it was okay when it came to a stop again, but I thought for sure the car was going to go over. But, okay, we lost about 10 seconds because of that. We could have done without that.
Burns started the day with that 17.2-second lead. He soon extended it with a win on the first, the second and the third stage of day 3. Therefore, his lead went up to 48 seconds with 2 stages to go. The crowds, as always, were out on the stages, although some of them were a little too enthusiastic. Even on those last 2 stages, Burns wasn't quickest, but only by a 4 and then 1 second margin. After the fright of the electronic gearbox problems yesterday, all went well today. Burns' time by the time he got to the finish was 4 hours, 21 minutes and 21.2 seconds, and he wins the Acropolis Rally 1999. The Spanish former 3-time winner of the event, Carlos Sainz, lost too much time on the second stage of day 3. Although he tried to fight back, a puncture and front shock absorber failure befell the Toyota, and he therefore fell back in time. Skill and mastery of the Spaniard gave the team needed championship points to keep their very healthy manufacturer's lead. So with McRae non-scoring, Carlos Sainz would shake off the Scot in the Drivers' Championship table. He'd eventually wound up 1 minute back of Burns. Tommi Mäkinen, starting day 3 in 3rd position and 35 seconds back of Burns, flew through the first stage to be 12 seconds up at the halfway point of a 16-miler. Now that is steaming through. It was impressive stuff from the Finn, but his charge on Sainz, who was only 18 seconds ahead of him overall, was blunted. Mäkinen had a problem with the rear wishbone, where it joined on to the crossmember. They did some self-repair on it before getting into service, but it lost them precious time. The impact that did the damage to the rear suspension, making the rear bumper hang off by a thread. He suffered a 50-second penalty for being late at a time control, so therefore he dropped down to 4th overall.
It's going very well until something broke in rear suspension. It was just some little aluminium part which was broken, and we had to slow down completely because rear wheel got completely loose and drive shaft came out, and we couldn't do anything anymore.
Well, the Mitsubishi team did have both of their cars still in the rally, so that was good for their championship, in the manufacturer's table at least, aspirations. Tommi Mäkinen eventually finishing 3 minutes behind Richard Burns. Teammate Freddie Loix was running with damage inflicted on day 2, but he continued with the battle scars. Mäkinen's delays had left Loix in a solid fourth before team orders then instructed him to ease off and let Mäkinen through. So Loix up into fourth, into third, and then holding back. He finished over 4 minutes behind Burns. And getting a good result on a World Championship rally this year in his new team.
En 50, rechtsonder laten naar voren, op 50, links 73.
So Freddie Loix getting over the stones in fourth position, but maybe this rally is too tough.
Well, it was just impossible. Yeah, it wasn't too rough. It was just impossible to physically drive cars over it.
The surface is so rough, maybe much more rougher than every year.
Well, I hope we are getting over the last 3 stages, because what I have seen on the first 2 this morning, I mean, it has not much to do with rallying. I mean, it's more like a off-road event. It's very, very rough.
Delacour wanted to take it easy and get the Peugeot home, but the team suggested that he pushed the 206 to the limits, and essentially this public test session before the full-time assault in the year 2000 on the championship. Staying late in service, he incurred a 1 minute 40-second penalty after suspension problems, but eventually severe shock absorber damage on stage 19 put the Frenchman out of the rally. Very impressive performance though. Delacour did get a fastest stage time on stage 8.
50 mètres, gauche à fond, long, long. Gauche à fond, long, long. 100 mètres. 100 mètres, léger gauche.
Here we are on stage 19, and just look at those shockers doing nothing. Delacour out of the rally.
This morning we had, first of all, on the first special stage, no power steering, and after maybe 15 case, the shock absorber went off like yesterday night with it was the front, now it was the rear. Then we lost a lot of time.
Both Skodas were still running, and Trinner was aware that the team could score constructors' points if he were amongst the top 6 World Rally cars to finish. As a result of Delacour's retirement, he was the 5th World Rally car to finish, albeit 23 minutes behind the winner, Richard Burns. His Skoda teammate Armin Schwartz destroyed his sump, and although the trouble gave him concern, he managed to continue. He was able to finish in front of Trinner, but was over 23 minutes behind the leaders. By winning the 2-litre class in the Hyundai, Kenneth Eriksson helped close the gap on series leaders Renault in two-wheel drive. He inherited the lead from teammate Alistair McRae on stage 7 and was never headed to the end. MSD getting some valuable points for the Milton Keynes operation. At the finish, all the drivers acknowledged that this is one of the toughest Acropolis rallies ever, and that was after 46 editions. Burns won, and the world soon knew about it. Final results then. Richard Burns wins in Greece by over 1 minute ahead of Carlos Sainz, Tommi Mäkinen, Freddie Loix. Marco Martin, the young Estonian driver in his first rally in a Toyota Corolla, grabs 5th ahead of reigning Greek champion Kirkos. in a Ford Escort WRC. Less than half of the 117 starters finished the rally, so there you have the championship. Tommi Mäkinen now leading by 4 ahead of non-scoring Oriol. Sainz pulling ahead of Richard Burns. Championship with the manufacturers, Toyota leads from Mitsubishi.